Uncluttered and Unfiltered is supported by Hearts for Minds. Looking to cut back on alcohol? Dry July is the perfect opportunity to reduce or entirely remove alcohol and experience improved sleep, lower stress, and a mental health boost. This Dry July, prioritize your well-being with Hearts for Minds Mocktails with Meaning free ebook featuring delicious mocktails from top restaurant mixologists. Discover a world of non-alcoholic options for home, poolside, or dining out. Join the movement. Raise a glass to mental wellness and support Hearts for Minds. Find the Mocktails with Meaning ebook at heartsforminds.org.
Welcome to Uncluttered and Unfiltered, the podcast urging you to let it go and don't look back. With nationally acclaimed professional organizer Christine Stone and self-proclaimed hot damn mess radio and TV personality Eden Kendall.
Welcome, everybody, to Uncluttered and Unfiltered with Eden and Chris. We're going to be getting into something in the next several episodes that have to do with organizing Eden, me.
Yes.
And so I'm really excited about that. But before we do that, today's episode is specifically about memorabilia. And that's going to apply to Project Eden over here, which I hope everybody feels is a project for them to participate in. And it's not just about me. But also, this one is about those things that you can't even really explain why you were holding on to them all these many years, but you're not quite ready to part with them either.
Yes. Or you're ready to part with them, but you don't know how.
There's that as well. So we're going to get into all of that with memorabilia. But before we do that, we wanted to talk a little bit about what we're reading, what we're watching, what we've been up to. And we always want to hear from you on our Facebook Ladies Only page as well. But let's talk about TV viewing. So I started season 3 of The Bear, which is the Hulu show about the restaurant. And season 1 was great. Season 2 was unbelievable. Season 3, it's a little slower grabbing me in. What are you watching?
Okay, so of course I have to watch true crime. So I finished the Sherry Papini Perfect Wife documentary on.
I don't know who that is.
I'm shuddering that you don't even know the story. So she was the pretty blonde hair who faked her kidnapping and reappeared on Thanksgiving morning, claiming that 2 Mexican women kidnapped her while she was on a run, and they abused her. They beat her up. They burned her with a, poker or whatever. They burned her body. They cut her blonde hair off. They did all these terrible things to her. And it turns out it was all something she had planned, like a Gone Girl episode where she had it planned down to the T. And they didn't catch her for a while. They believed her for a long while, including her husband believed her for a long while. And then 4 years later.
Oh, the husband wasn't even in on it.
No, not at all. 4 years later, they find out that the whole entire thing was planned. An ex-boyfriend she had been talking to, she was staying at his place during the whole thing, claiming she was kidnapped. And they figured it all out. And then she was arrested and her husband divorced her. And so this brings you to the present day where they interview him. It's like his side of the story, the husband, ex-husband.
So this happened in our own community. Without getting into too many details, I actually know one of the players involved. So this happened in our community too. Big story, Dateline and all of this. And I tell you, it feels like these women, it has usually starts with some kind of an illicit affair or something, and it just makes them to the point where to cover up their tracks, maybe?
No, I think it's an attention getter. I think it goes way back to a childhood thing. I think that they said that in the documentary. She had problems when she was younger. She left home when she was 16, all on her own. And I just think, according to her sister, she had a lot of mental issues and needed constant love and reassurance, and to feel like people were, not to feel invisible, to feel like she constantly wanted attention.
So she lets someone, or she does this to herself, or this ex-boyfriend is burning her, cuts her hair.
Everything. So hits her with a hockey puck in her nose, breaks her nose.
So she can stumble in on Thanksgiving morning. I'm found.
Yes.
Wow.
It was really
And where
intense.
is that streaming?
That's on Netflix. called
course it
The
is.
Perfect Wife. Of course I had to watch that. And then on another topic, I went to the Tudors. I don't know if you've ever watched the Tudors.
What's that?
That's about like King Henry and all his wives.
Oh, yes.
And the different wives, and each episode goes into the detail on how he beheads some wives.
I saw the musical 6, and that's what that's about. Each of the wives gets to tell their story to see who had it the worst.
Yes. So that I finished. It was 4 seasons. I really liked it. It was very bingeable.
I love all of those kinds of historical fiction things.
Too.
That's historical, real. Is it more like a documentary? Is it like
no? It's a dramatization, and they had really great actors portraying all these people. Of course, they never look like the real King Henry or the real wives. If you
better looking,
these people were really good looking, and you go back and it's just and see pictures, and it's nothing like that.
One of the wives, or at least this is what I learned from the musical 6. Was he saw her picture and then brought her in, and then she didn't look as good as her picture. And so he was like, okay, you just do your own thing and just don't bother me.
He made her his sister. He sent her off, gave her a house, gave her money, everything, and now called her his sister, had it annulled and called her his sister. Actually, I feel like she got off the luckiest.
That's what they said in the musical.
Yeah.
Why are you complaining?
Yeah.
Look, you got set up in a house.
Yeah.
All of this.
So that's what I've been doing.
That sounds fun. Speaking of historical fiction, historical dramatization, I have been reading books by an author named Kristen Hanna. And I actually put out there on our Ladies Only Facebook page, what are you guys reading? And a couple of you are also reading books by her. One is The Nightingale, and it has to do with Nazi-occupied France, and it's just a heart-wrenching novel, fantastic book. So now I'm reading The Women. The Women is centered around nurses in Vietnam. Last night I dreamt that you and I
oh my God,
were drafted to serve in the military. It was a Vietnam situation, and it was a call for women over 50. So everyone listening right now, you are basically in my dream. And you and I, and there were a couple of other women who I don't remember who it was. They said, bring all your jewelry. For some reason, we had to bring all our jewelry. And we were having conversations. Are you really bringing all your jewelry? How much are you really going to bring?
It's hot in Vietnam too. It
is.
That's not good hair country.
No, it is not.
No.
And in fact, the heroine in my book chopped all of hers off before she went because she knew. So anyway, we show up. I guess I woke up at that point. So I don't know.
Thank goodness. I'm dying to know what help I would be over there, but
not a lot, really. Frankly, I don't think I would be of much help either. Although from what I read, women tend to rise to the occasion.
You have to.
On a regular basis.
Yeah, you have to. What are you going to do?
Yeah. There are stories throughout history of women who thought they could never be of any importance, and then they become true heroes.
Yes, I agree with that.
Having said that, let's just be grateful and feel very blessed. That is not our life right now.
I agree.
Okay. Let's move into memorabilia from an organizer's perspective. You have props today.
Yes.
For those listening, we are going to do our level best to fully describe each of these props so you don't feel obligated to do anything further. But for those who are visual learners, we do have our Patreon set up for $5 a month. You have access to videos from each of these episodes whenever possible, and additional videos and additional content, and a whole bunch of upcoming organizational videos as well. Frankly, it's like just a way to keep the lights on. We have that $5 a month. It helps us to have production costs covered and help spread the word about our podcast. So if you're willing to be a part of that, you'll get to see some videos as well. So tell me what we're covering.
It does relate to what we've been doing with you, and that is what to do women over 50. And this is for younger people as well, but it's a different mindset. And I was trying to explain that earlier. When you are over 50, sometimes you're downsizing, so you don't have the space to store items. Your kids are grown, so you're just storing all their items for them. You become a storage unit. It is so important to look at your memorabilia as something that's a small project that you're going to do a box at a time. You cannot try to do this all at one time because memorabilia holds very emotional side of clutter. Like a lot of things like, okay, a baking dish, you're not going to sit around and go, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
But you are finding cards and letters and photos, and you're having to separate items. So that's what we're here to talk about today is how do you first start, then what's the next step? And we're going to go step by step on how to finally try to conquer the memorabilia clutter in your home.
All right. So I actually am doing this. Now, the timeline here is a little bit different because of when we record. So you and I have already started discussing getting me organized. And in the coming weeks, you'll be hearing that first episode of that. But I will say that because of the timeline, I have jumped ahead to going through some memorabilia myself and photos. So where do you want to start here?
The first thing is, like I said, you start small. So if you found something, say, in a linen closet, but then there's some more over in the laundry room, and then there's some more in the upstairs bedroom, the first thing you really want to do is gather it all in one spot, because where are you going to store what you are keeping? It can't be all over the house. Number one, it'll take up too much room, and it's easier for you to find, other people to find if you ever need photos or anything. And trust me, for my daughter's wedding, I needed a lot of this. So having it organized and labeled was extremely helpful. So you just never know when you're going to have to get to it. When you're deciding to do this, you get a garbage can. That's the first thing you do. And we're not going to go into details about photos because this is more on memorabilia as well as random photos, but we're concentrating more on memorabilia today. So the first thing you want to do, grab a garbage can and invest in some bins that have a lid, that are tightly sealed, and that you can label. And these are two of my very own bins. I bought, I would say 10 to 15. You can buy more than you need, return the rest. And then when you're doing...
They're like the Rubbermaid clear bins with a silver top, these specific. And she's moved them over so they're in front of the camera right now. And they're labeled very clearly.
They're labeled very clearly. And what I did was I opened up all of these bins, sat them on, I had a couple extra beds in a guest room. And it's like you're just shuffling things. You've already labeled the bins. So for me, I say you label the bins in stages of your life. So for me, it was lower school, middle school, high school, college, dating my husband, whatever, wedding time, Christmas, whatever it is, you have to label it so you are able to get to it. So for me, I labeled lower school, middle school, I have high school, and they're all labeled. And this is why I love these. They're stackable. So you can use the vertical space on a shelf and stack them. But the real part that people have a problem is getting rid of the items. So the first thing I always say is, do you have the room to store it? Okay. A lot of people over 50 have downsized, or they wanted to downsize. They don't need the room anymore because their kids are grown. So you can only get this all organized if you have a place to store it. So you have to really think, where am I storing what I'm keeping? And what I'm keeping, is it stuff I really love, or is I'm keeping it out of guilt? I'm keeping it out of guilt.
Let's push those bins all the way back to that corner way over there. Okay. And so now we recognize that we're going to be sorting, but we're not keeping everything. Just because we're sorting it doesn't mean it stays.
No. Actually, it does. What you're sorting into these bins stays. The garbage can is right next to you, so you're throwing away what you don't need. Now, if it's items you want to donate, items you want to sell, items you want to give to your sister, your cousin, your aunt, you also have to put those aside and label those. You can label them with Post-it notes. You have a time limit, though, set for people to come get things or for you to go drop off. If it's become something that's just an eyesore because you didn't get around to doing a pickup or a drop off or finding a place to sell them, and we're going to have a few links on where to sell everything. Be on the lookout for that, because there's so much now with the internet. You can sell anything. The question you have to ask yourself, is it worth the time it will take to sell it? I can tell you this personally, for me, no. the amount of time to take a picture of the item, find out how much it costs, go and if it's an eBay type thing and you're haggling back, I can't.
There's a comedian, Nate Bargatze.
I know him.
He's so funny. He does a whole thing about his wife doing all of this Facebook marketplace. And someone was coming to the house and he said, so let me understand this. Worst case scenario, they murder our whole family.
Yes.
Best case scenario, we make $5. Is that a trade-off that is interesting to you? It's not to me.
In this day and age, and I'm a total crime junkie,
yes.
I would have no stranger coming to my house.
No, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to meet someone.
Okay, good. Because that would just never happen. If I don't think $5 or $10 or even $100 is worth any stranger.
The more dangerous.
Right.
Probably.
I wouldn't do that. But I think if you want to get rid of something, take a photo and let it go. If you're holding on to this because you feel guilty, what is the guilt associated with it? That someone gave that to you, but you don't like it. You're really, really thinning everything out. And when we had a hurricane one year, I moved every one of these bins from the floor of a closet downstairs all the way up, thinking, what if there was a flood with the hurricane? Not thinking if the roof blew off. So anyway, and after the hurricane was over, I said, I have too many bins. I'm going to really pare them down. And I grabbed a garbage can and I started going through all my bins. And I have to tell you, I really pared it down because in your mind, when you're older, you're thinking, if anything happens to me, no one cares about Miss Susie's class when I was in third grade in my report. Don't care. Only I care about that stuff. So you have to be realistic about what you're saving. A lot of college stuff I got rid of that really I would never look at again. If you're not looking at it and you're not going in and looking at any of this, think to yourself, why am I keeping it? Mm-hmm. That's the question. So ask yourself, are these items being kept out of habit, out of guilt? Are the items causing clutter and stress in your home and limiting your enjoyment in your home? Oh gosh, my whole guest room is full of memorabilia. I can't even have friends over. I can't have guests over, or my home office got taken over by memorabilia. That's when you really have to tackle it, in my opinion, if it's taking over your peaceful living existence. So that's really important, except that it's going to be an emotional process. That's why I always say start small. Start with one bin or one box, because you start looking through pictures, you start reading cards, and it brings you to a point in your life when you were younger, when you were in high school, when you had this boyfriend. It just brings you to a time and a place that you are not at anymore in your life. So it's going to be emotional. Someone who's passed away and you've tried to hide these so you don't think about it. So once you tackle one and you label one box and you have one done, it's going to motivate and inspire you. And if you're doing it because with your kids, label their boxes. I'm giving 4 of them to my daughter. You hear that, daughter of mine? And because they're all her memorabilia that I've been keeping until she moved into her own home. So that's another thing, giving the boxes to your children. And you've done your job. You've sorted everything. You've made it easy. And now they can take them and go.
Yearbooks.
Yep. How to store. Okay, we showed one way. Here's another way. For me, I like to keep cards from my mom, anybody who means a lot to me in my life goes in what I call this box. It's a clear box with the lid. It's glass. It's
very decorative.
It's very beautiful. Decorative.
Okay, so why don't you hold that up to the camera?
I sit it on a shelf.
So it's visible for anybody to see.
And usually I put the top latest on the top. So that way when I'm walking by it, I'm like, I remember that was like the latest card I got.
It's a very sweet idea.
It's a very sweet idea. Now, do I have every card ever written to me? No, this is, I would say, 25 years worth of cards. So a lot go by the wayside.
Sure.
You have to be very picky and choosy. Another idea, and this is from Archive. I don't know if you've heard about them for kids memorabilia. They send you a box and you put everything in the box. You ship the box out and they send back everything in books. They have a new thing for cards and I was dying to try it. So you send all your cards in a box and then they send you a book. You get to pick out your cover. You get to pick out your saying. And I have to tell you,
it's adorable.
It is absolutely, it was beyond my expectations. And that's hard for me. This was such a clever idea, and you can do it with anything with this company.
What a fantastic gift to make for somebody as well.
It's an amazing gift. I just think that this way you can keep this on a bookshelf and then look at it whenever you want. And it can be for photos. It could be for medals. It could be for anything you want it to be. All you do is put it in the box and they will make it into whatever you want. And I have to tell you, their quality is what really got me. It's very high quality. So that's
called Archive.
Archive. And we'll put a link there because they are, and I'm not getting paid for this at all. They are a really great company and they really take pride in their work. Where we are now is, how are we going to store the items, and what do we do with the stuff we're getting rid of? Like I said, we're going to have links. There's so many links on so many different things, whether it's clothing, crystal, china, art, you name it, handbags, that you can sell your items if you want to do that. I personally think memorabilia should just be sorted, not putting so much time and effort into something because you're going to get bored with it. You sort them, you stick a label on the front, and you store them on a shelf and make sure, like I said, they're stackable bins. Or if you love something, display it, put it on a bookshelf, get rid of the tchotchke things that you walk by every day and go, why do I even have that on my bookshelf? You want items in your home to represent where you are in your life now and what you love. And I think that even taking, say you found a whole bunch of photos, you could put all Christmas photos and send them off to Archive and they can make a book. There's so many options with different items in your home. And I have to tell you, I've done it myself. I've gone through memorabilia. My mom's given me so much memorabilia, and you have to do your homework and you have to make it work for the space that you're living in, and know that it's going to be an emotional task. Not all of it is, but most of it is if it's memorabilia.
I do love the idea of making a book out of all Christmas photos year after year. Another thing that we do, but not consistently, so this is something now that I'm sorting photos I plan to go back and do, is we have ornaments made out of Christmas photos from years past. So when you're decorating the tree, you can't help but saying, oh, look at this one of all of us. Look at that one of all of us. Our tree every year has so much when it comes to a walk down memory lane, because we always get the one ornament that has the cartoon of all of us. You can see different dogs in the family. The whole history is played out on that tree. And I think that's important to have those things displayed, whether it's just once a year or just every single day. Having that box of cards is gorgeous.
Yeah. I'm the type, because I'm an organizer and an organized person, when I walk in my house every day, everything that I see, I love. There isn't anything that I go, oh, why do I have that out? I love everything that I've acquired. And that's the thing also, you can have empty shelves and put things on them as you acquire them. Everyone thinks they have to fill their spaces right away the minute they move in. And it's just, it ends up getting filled with stuff that you don't love, that doesn't mean a lot to you.
Just because the Marshall's buyer liked it doesn't mean it fits in your home.
So you want to keep your home comfortable for what you like and what makes you feel good when you walk into your house.
Even if shelves stay empty for a while.
Even if shelves stay. I harp on that a lot, because a lot of people say, look, we purged, we organized, now I have 5 shelves empty or a whole closet. It's okay. It's okay. It'll get filled up again. The shelves will get filled up again, but it takes time to acquire items, and you don't need to fill up everything in your house. Sometimes it's nice to have a space that you can it can breathe for a while. So yeah, I'm really honestly very passionate about memorabilia because I see so much of it, and I see storage units filled with it. I see garages filled with it. And by the way, worst place to store your memorabilia is in a garage because of the humidity. There's no air condition or temperature regulated. So you get bugs and you get mildew. It's just, I don't want to deal with it, so I'm going to throw it somewhere. Deal with it. You'll be so glad you did.
You've said before things like China that you don't use. We've talked about it here. We've talked about it on TV. Taking one piece of China to hold your jewelry in, something like that. That's just one piece of something. Just, you don't have to have everything out. Keep everything.
If you're not going to use the China or the silver, your kids are not going to take this stuff. Do your homework, find out where you can sell it, or maybe somebody else in your family wants it. But keeping all that, really, say you got it 35 years ago when you got married and you're like, I keep bringing it from place to place, but I never, ever use it. Now's the time to say, why am I holding on to it? Why am I keeping it? Is it out of guilt? Is it because I'm too lazy to sell it? Is it nobody wants it and I feel really guilty? We're going back to guilt again. It's really, to me, guilt clutter.
That's my grandmother's sheet music.
Yeah.
For playing the piano. She gave me the whole piano. And when we moved, we gave the piano away, which would have been fine with her because we made sure it went to somebody who otherwise wouldn't have a piano and is very old. But I kept all the sheet music. Okay, so now I have this yellowing, it's crackling sheet music, and I'm trying to find an art project or some way to take one sheet of it and then get rid of the rest. I mean, that's something I'm working on right now.
So that's funny you said art project, because it reminds me of the days when we used to do the scrapbooking. What was that called? Memories or something.
Oh, yeah, creative memories.
Yeah, creative memories. I go into more homes where people had the intentions of a project.
Sure.
And it just never got finished. So I can relate because I did start creative memories for a hot minute, but knew that wasn't up my alley.
My son has one. My daughter does not.
I just said, I'm not really artsy, so I think it was a little frustrating for me. But unless you really have time on your hands, which, by the way, you don't.
I know I do.
Thinking you're going to do something, I personally would frame 2 of them, take a picture of the rest, and let them go. Frame them, hang them, put them on a bookshelf, do something with them if they mean a lot to you. If they mean absolutely really nothing to you, I would take pictures and let them go. That's what happens is you start holding on to items that you really don't want, but you just feel guilty letting them go. Like grandma's going to come up from the grave and say, how could you do that?
Yeah, my great-granddaughter might want to learn how to play a George Gershwin.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen.
So it's a hard call, but you also downsize like I did. And so it's a call sometimes you have to make because you're limited in space. You're limited in what you can keep. And that is something I keep saying over and over. And people in an 8,000 square foot house, now they have the room and they may say, but I have the room. That's fabulous. I think that's great if you have a storage closet that you can fill with, but everybody's circumstance is different. And you have to work within what you own and what you have.
Okay. What else? Anything else we want to cover on this very, very emotional subject matter?
I think what I try to get across is I try to motivate and inspire people, even if you do one thing today, just one, or this week. Take a picture of the before, take a picture of the after, put it on our Facebook only ladies group and show it to me, because that brings me so much joy that you guys out there are really making a dent in some of the clutter in your house, and that you send feedback to me saying, oh my God, it's like bricks have been lifted off my shoulders. And it really proves to me that people live in clutter, even though it doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel comfortable. but they don't know where to begin. They don't know how to get rid of it, and they don't know what to do with it. So hopefully this episode gave you all those things that you need to at least get started. And this is not an expensive project at all. Those bins were from Target. It's never about a lot of money. It's about the purging and getting rid of things.
Which brings us to what I mentioned a little bit earlier. We are, when we get to the end of the summer, we're going to be kicking off, or some people consider the beginning of August still very summer. A lot of people go back to school, but which is a great time to start something if you still have kids in the house, if you're not an empty nester. But even if you are, which a lot of us are, you are invited to take this project on with me. Organizing Eden is the thing we're calling it, but it really is for all of us, because I plan to share all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, with videos, and I'm not trying to come across like I'm in some kind of a hoarding situation, which is a very real thing that happens. And that's not a judgment. I'm just saying I'm not trying to I'm your everyday run-of-the-mill person who has held on to a lot of things, who is very busy, who doesn't follow a system, who creates additional stress because of that. I'm just like everybody else who is not super organized.
Yes.
And so I feel like you'll be able to relate to me.
I think so.
I really do believe that.
And I give tons of tips that you'll see also when we show on the Patreon with video. I give step-by-step tips on what I'm seeing, how to correct it. We're going to show you how we corrected it. And so it's a lot of really good material.
It is. It's just starting out with this. If you want to be a part of that, we will make sure that in our show notes, you know how to do that. And we will put in our show notes all of these resources that you mentioned for being able to sell some items, to be able to create memory books. And please do join our Ladies Only Facebook group. It is absolutely free. It is a private group just for listeners of this podcast. And please share us with one friend. We, of course, benefit when you leave a review or when you subscribe, and then you're reminded when an episode is coming. But the biggest favor we ask is you tell one friend. Really, that's it.
Yep.
And as far as memorabilia goes, some of it, not all of it, you can let it go.
And don't look